Are you wanting to make sure you get good support on your model so you get a good print and don't have to deal with those fails? Well, join me today as I tell you 3 ways to add support in Cura and then challenge you on the use of your supports. See you guys inside. Hello and welcome to today's video. As I said, supports. Some of the best but also most annoying things you can run into with 3D printing. Because you want to get your model printed, but then you got to get the support off without breaking it. And that can sometimes be the biggest pain in the tuchus you can ever run into. But, as I said in the intro too, I'm going to challenge you about your support that you use. Because some people have said I overuse support, that I put too much on my prints. And you know what? Removing these is one of the things that I hate the most. But what I hate even more is throwing it away. And with that, it's kind of one of those things. You got to take a challenge when you do support and you rip it off. Does it just go in the trash can, or can you use it for something more, for something else? I'm going to talk about that more after we're done showing how to put supports on in Cura today. So, first off, we're going to hop over. We're going to do supports in Cura. And this one here, guys, it's a fail print, but I consider a raft a support because it's actually helping you keep that build plate adhesion. It's actually widening your plate adhesion. So it's actually supporting your model staying on the print bed. So I do include it as a support, but it's not one of the things I'm talking about, but that's why this is here on the table. But these are all supports that I've ripped out of different projects. But before we head over to the computer, if you like what you see on the channel and you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button, join the crew. I appreciate it. Everybody matters in this channel. All the comments, I try to get back to you guys as much as I can. Also, leave a comment. You know, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask. If you're just getting started in 3D printing or something like that, ask the questions. Because I do appreciate it, because it was hard when I started this journey, and I don't want you to have to deal with the pain that I had to deal with. So, let's jump over to the computer and let's talk about this support. Okay guys, here we are in Cura. So I've got a model on the table. We're going to shift through a couple models today just to kind of talk about support. So there's 3 ways I'm going to talk about adding support today. Now, this is not probably all of them, but these are the 3 quickest ways to do it. There's the auto-generated support, there is tree support, then you can also add your own custom supports. And that's what I'm going to show you. But first, I want to have a conversation about getting your model the right way to reduce the number of supports. Because that's the key thing that you want to look for, is as little support on the model as you can. Because that's less you got to take off. That's less that you're printing of support. That just makes it kind of easier to work with. So, but we all know we need support on the models. Because the models have, if we don't support certain areas that are being printed, not printed up, or the print itself is not really supporting, it's gonna sag, it's gonna break, it's just gonna fall off, and you're gonna get spaghetti. You're gonna just get a lot of problems with not supporting. So you guys, if you didn't see the Star Fury video, go check that out. I printed this guy in 2 pieces, but I'm looking at the full model today because I tried to do this one and I gave up, and I shouldn't have done that. So what we want to do here is, there are a lot of little pieces, like back here on the engine foils, there's these little pieces here. Now, one way to auto-generate support is you scroll down to support and generate support. Now, support overhang angle is important. The higher the percentage, the less support. So it kind of works backwards. My support placement, I have it everywhere, but you can also just do where it's touching the build plate. I just kind of prefer everywhere. I feel like I get better coverage from the auto-generated. And when I slice this at 85%, I shouldn't see very much support, because when you put in 90, it won't put anything. So, and 100% is 0 support at all. So I've got this at 85. It's not going to provide enough support to print this. So we click over, process the layer, and you can see it did add support, but honestly, I don't think that's really going to build up and print. It added it in several key overhang areas, but I still see a big possibility of the print failing. You notice too, I have raft turn on. That's just kind of, to me, another form of supporting. You have the options of raft, skirt, brim, or none. A lot of times you'll see me use a raft. Or oftentimes too, if I especially want that nice smooth bottom from my glass plate, I'll use a brim just to help keep that model adhered to my plate. It gives more coverage area on the plate's adhesion to keep that done. But this example, we're doing a raft, and the extra margin of the raft is important too, because if you want 5%, then it'll only go out about 5 millimeters from your spot of it touching the plate. Now you can go all the way up to 30 millimeters if you want to use that much plastic, depending on what you're printing. You know, sometimes that extra little oomph of plate holding is important, and that's just kind of one of those things. It is itself a type of support. So as I slice this one, you'll see that the raft itself gets bigger, just to kind of keep going with the way that we're printing. So I increased it. The raft medallions, as you can see now, the rafts are bigger. They're actually connecting to each other, but that's not really the key here. So if I really want to support this, a lot of times I try not to go past 70%. I've just kind of found that that's really painful. The more support you got to remove, one, the more chance you're going to break your model. Two, the more likely you may cut yourself, because removing support can be jagged edges or scrape your knuckles or something like that. Or it just can be unpleasant, or just really kind of destroy your print. Leaving the support marks where connected to it and different things like that make things jagged. Now see, like I did this, to me, this support is really, really bad, because I have a ton of places I'm going to have support connecting to my model, creating jagged edges. So what sometimes the best thing for support is find the best way for your model to sit on the build plate. So like this, I actually should cut down the support for some of the areas, because honestly, and if you've seen some of my prints, I've had failed supports. If you want to see a good one, go check out my Mandalorian armor video, where on the chest plate I actually had a support fail and spaghetti stream in the back of it. It actually gave me a pretty good scare that the print was going to fail. It's kind of one of the unfortunate things with support, but generate support is kind of just a generic. The system will identify those spots based on your support overhang angle and try to make sure it has enough coverage to make sure that it's supporting your model. Now this one is done, and I think I actually tried to print this way once, but look at all the support it just added. This is even worse than the other position. So it's kind of angling, testing, kind of just work with your model to get the best place to get it centered on there. Now I'm going to clear the build plate. I'm going to go back and set this back to 5, because I usually don't go past 5. I'm going to grab another model, and this one I'm going to grab is the Hulkbuster, and we'll let him get on there. Now there's another type of support called tree support. Down here in experimental in your Cura, you'll be able to check mark tree support, and it'll give you that branch overhang angle and everything like that, and it will generate a different, well, it'll generate tree supports, which are more thicker supports that grow up your model. Now if I was printing this model, I would go into Mesh Mixer and I would cut his arms off. I would put slices right here and alignment pins and print the arms separate. That way I don't have to use a ton of support to keep those arms up there, because those arms and hands can easily become a failure point in your print. And Mesh Mixer, you just get to take them off, print them separate, and then attach them. And the alignment pins, make sure you get connected correctly, and you're not printing on that support, so you're actually saving material by doing that. I'll put a link down in the description to that video on how to do those plane cuts. All right, we finally got him sliced, and we'll go into preview mode here, and we'll take a look at what the tree support did. Now I did forget to remove the normal support, so I got to slice it again. All right, now we got them rendered out, and you can see the tree support. It builds very differently than the other supports, but it still creates that skirting on him. That's going to make this not as pleasant to take off. And you can see here's a really good example of it right here, of how it's building up. It builds up the model to make sure it has support. Now I may have this one, I've got it at 70%. I probably could knock that down, but again, you're also using a ton of PLA. For a model like this, mesh mixer, cut the arms off and print it upright. But this is just another method of supporting, is that tree method, as it will grow up along the model and oftentimes can be removed pretty easy. So it's kind of one of those things. This is another option you can do, but I'm going to kick this model off the plate and we're going to pull in one that honestly I printed it in resin just for the fun of it, but I am a fan of Overwatch, and I'm going to load in Mercy because this is a difficult model to FDM print. Even resin, it's kind of a difficult one. So let's get this one center correct, standing upright, and you can see all the trouble that this model can bring support wise. It's going to be a nightmare to take off supports. So what we can do too is, if it doesn't generate a support, this is where I'm going to talk about custom supports. If it doesn't generate a support that you're after, well, you can add it. So one thing I need to do is I'm going to shrink her down to get her onto the build plate. So I'm going to knock her down to 70% and get the yellow, which is what we want. Yellow is good. Yellow will print. So we've got her on the build plate. But I'm really worried about her wings. So I'll hop over here to custom support, and you have some options to use cylinders, wider base. You can do the sizes. I'm just going to choose cube, and I'm going to go up here on her wing, and I'm going to click. I'm going to add that support to her wing. These supports tend to be thicker. You can make them thicker, you can make them smaller, depending on what the size you want here. Like her staff, I want to make sure that gets supported. So I'm going to add that in before I go and do the other type of support. That way I can make sure these points get supported. If I'm really concerned about it, it lets me do what I need to do to ensure that my model is going to print and what I'm comfortable with seeing it do. So I've just added those supports myself. I did not auto generate them. I clicked where I wanted the support to go. We can switch it over to a cylinder and just kind of click in, and it will be a cylindrical support, as you can see right there. So there are all kinds of things that you can do here. So I'll add one here, and it adds a rounded support instead of a square. So that's 3 ways that you can add a support to a model. There's the auto generate, there's the experimental tree support, and then there is the custom support that you can add to your model. Now, also, like I said, there's rafts, there's brim. Those just help with plate adhesion, but I also consider them a support because I got to peel it off. So that all falls into the support realm. And honestly, when I see something like this out here, a lot of times I'll put a raft on just to give them more adhesion to the plate. Because honestly, this is a figurine. I don't care what this looks like. I care what this looks like. So if I have to put more plate adhesion, such as a raft or something, I will, because I want to ensure that model is going to rise up properly and work correctly. So that's just one method to the supports. Now, one thing I do want to bring into is enable retraction and Z-hop when retracted. That way the print head will lift up a little bit, move, and then come back down. That way it's not clipping your supports, knocking them over, knocking your print off, to be honestly. And also one thing you can check too is avoid supports when traveling. That way it doesn't travel over support unless it has to. So that just kind of changes to make sure your supports don't get broken, because usually that's what happens a lot of time with a print fail, is the support broke or a piece wasn't supported properly and it sagged or broke off. So let's hop over back to the bench. I've got a challenge for you guys. See you over there. So guys, that's support. Sometimes there's no good way to do it on a model, that you're just going to have to go with as much support as you can to get it built the best you can. Sometimes you're going to have to break the model up. And I show you how to do that in Mesh Mixer, on how to just cut the model in half or to do cuts in the model to take different pieces off. That will allow you to be able to put print the model in separate parts and put together without using a lot of support. Like I said, laid out before me is some different types of support. There's some failed prints in front of me too, because I also want to issue a challenge. If you do a support on a video, on a print, my challenge to you is don't throw it away. Think of a way to repurpose it. Now, do I occasionally throw stuff away? Yeah, if I've cut it up into little chunks or something like that, sometimes I'll throw it away. But a lot of times I hold on to the stuff too, because your imagination can take place here. So as you can see, I've got 2 Warhammer figurines that I've purchased. Well, I was doing a project with Iron Man, which is coming, sneak peek, and this was support I pulled off the back of his helmet, as were these in the earpieces. But I looked at them and I was kind of like, you know, those are kind of cool. And as I'm really starting to get back into Warhammer and start doing some of the painting and different things like that, and eventually once COVID lets up, I do intend on trying to play again. Because some of these figurines came from the Indominus kit that you've seen on the channel and different things like that. If you haven't, go back and take a look at that video, and it may explain somewhat more of what I'm talking about here as well, which is making dioramas, kit bashing. How can I use this? And, you know, I thought about it. This looks like a really cool terrain piece that it could easily be where they're holding out against an enemy force. So that was kind of one of those things, some paint, maybe some grout, different things like that. I could make this a really cool diorama piece if I wanted to for my figurines or terrain. Actually, the same with this piece. This was from the Razor Crest print. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But I actually was thinking about taking a clear half of a soda bottle, putting in here, trying to make a stained glass effect, kind of clean this up, and maybe make a shrine to the Emperor or a throne or something like that for Rupert Guilliman or one of those figurines from the series that could be his diorama as well. So dioramas are just one thing. Now, even supports from, this is a support from a resin print I did that I've held on to, because it just has a really cool structure that could look really cool if you wanted to make something battle damage like one of these starships. That girdering and stuff could be cut and put into where that damage is and give a really cool effect. So basically your discarded support doesn't need to be discarded or trashed. You can turn this into something. If you've got ABS prints, and actually I'm going to pull up the Warhammer sprues here. These melt in acetone and can be turned into a gooey substance and made into all kinds of stuff. You know, there's all kinds of channels out there like miniature hobbyists that show you how to use this ABS material to reuse it if you print with ABS. So my challenge to you guys, even a failed print like this one, I forget why power failure knocked this one out, but I looked at it, I was like, I don't really need to throw this away, because even though it's a fail, those slots could be made to hold a panel, like a piece of balsa wood or a piece of foam, and make a wall or a barricade as well, or different things or structures built on top of them, so they give a foundation. So it's not something that I'm just going to throw away. It's going to go in the big box of kit bashing material that includes a bunch of this stuff, even your rafts. Now, granted, there's something on top of this raft because this was a failed print due to a tangle in a spool. I'm not going to throw that away, because honestly, that's a pretty cool base for a diorama, or along those lines that you can think of. Instead of buying materials, this is just something that was a fail that you can turn into something awesome. So you know what? I challenge you guys to build something cool with your supports or your waste, because honestly, that's what I'm going to start doing, and you may start seeing on this channel, or I am thinking about starting a second channel for this kind of stuff, and keeping the 3D printing education separate. If you guys want to see that, let me know. I will definitely let the idea of the second channel float out there. But it's kind of one of those things, you're not limited on what you can do, because I've even had prints where I overprinted material. Actually, let me grab that. If you guys saw on the painting table, there were these modular pieces. Well, I printed a few more than what I needed because I expected to actually break a piece or two when I put this together. And I did break a few pieces, but I have some left over that I could turn into a lot of neat things. I mean, that's a pretty awesome start to a fortress for an ultramarine, or You know, the sky's the limit on what you can think here. I mean, even this piece, while it is full, it's sitting on a raft, you know, that could be, you could paint that up to be Times Square, the big teleprompter building. You could paint that and turn that into something pretty cool if you use your imagination. And that's what I challenge you guys to do. In the community page, there's my email address. If you have something cool that you've made out of supports or something like that, email me a picture. Let me know. Share the work, because I want to see what you guys are doing too. And that's what that email is for you guys to get in touch with me if needed. So I challenge you guys, show off your work. You know, put the links in there, show off the Facebook pages, wherever you got the pictures. Show it off. Challenge you. Challenge yourself to do something really cool with supports. So, with that said, again, if you like the content in this video, hit that subscribe button, join the crew. Glad to have you guys here. Want to really build this community and get going really strong, and every person matters in that. So if you have any questions about anything you saw in here, there are links down in the descriptions, including my Amazon affiliate links. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We will see you in the next episode.